Memory transcription subject. Slanek. Venlo Space Corps. Date. Standardized human time. December 4th, 2136. The memories trickle from my brain as a deep chill rattled my body. I was disoriented and immobile, uncertain of my surroundings. The current time and location were indeterminable. Haziness obscured my conscious thoughts. My mind reached out for context in an attempt to ground myself. We had been caged in the Tillfish nursery. I was shot during the fray. Marcel had propped me up, ignoring the stain on his own body. Orange blood flowed onto his chest belt, and perspiration beads coated his skin. Dino tagged along, whimpering as my eyes began to turn glassy. Vint was back in Birla's arms, asking why the Venlo was leaking. We were a ragtag band stranded on Silis. I remembered now. The Greys had been hot on our heels, and we hobbled toward the emergency exit. My vision was fixed on the door tiles, which were mired with my dripping blood. General Birla urged Vint to cover his ears as she dispensed my firearm at the Arxor. I think the carnivores refrained from gunning us down because they wanted to capture us alive. There was more. We had to get to the emergency exit, didn't we? Why is it all slipping out of reach? Shoot me, I had coughed at Marcel. Save yourselves. Please, brother. The predator refused to let go, bending his arm tighter around my torso. Tiredness threatened to consume me as the vegetarian popped errant shots over his shoulder. Images flitted from my brain from various moments of time. That forced snarl was his classic empathy rendition. That same expression had consoled me when Sovereign held him at gunpoint. Not too long ago, I'd been feeding the half-dead Terran by hand. Amid the chaos, I recalled hoping that Marcel knew how much I cared about his welfare. There were terrible screams, both near and afar, which sent my heart pounding. Despite all of the nightmares we had endured, I wouldn't change a thing about our partnership. Even if Marcel was losing patience with me, I hoped he still felt our bond. Think, Slanek. The screams. There was something there. Those had been Tillfish screams, as the incubator workers came running in droves. Our hasty escape hadn't given me time to don blinders. I'd seen it all. The civilians distracted our Arxor pursuers, stampeding past them at full speed. As much as the Greys wanted a Venlo delicacy, this easy meal toppled into their laps. Our ragtag band stumbled out into fresh air, and I was wholly leaning on Marcel for support. There were more Arxor in the street. I think that was the memory in its entirety. I glued the pieces back together. We needed to find somewhere to take cover. Birla clicked her mandibles in the backdrop. Slanek! Slanek! You have to keep your eyes open! I drew a gasping breath, and my pupils snapped to my arm. Judging by the dark hue and the profuse leakage, the bullet hit a vein. There was a wet sensation on my hind legs. At first, I worried it was blood from my wound. However, the realization that the brick tunnel we were in was a rotting mess ensued. A few inches of murky liquid amassed across the floor. Perhaps this was a sewer system underground? My adult brain shook off the stupor, and I searched for Marcel's comforting presence. I scanned every shadow for the lurking human. This wasn't the first time the predator had been around my blood, so I knew that he could handle the alluring scent. On Sovlin's ship, I'd been immobile with a head wound and locked in an enclosed cell without food. Even then, the human had cared about my welfare. There was no reason a vegetarian who loved rescuing animals should need to get away from blood. Humans weren't drawn to it like the Arxor. I'd never seen them react positively to a whiff of it. That ruled out that explanation for why my friend was missing. What if Marcel had gotten hurt? I couldn't remember how we made it down here at all. Why are we not going to space with Huma? Vint wailed. Birla patted him soothingly. Shh, darling. Go back to bed. Dino is missing as well. What if the dog ate Marcel? Or, I guess more likely, the Greys got them both. Where is Mark? I pressed one paw against the wall and tried to sit upright. How did we get here? The Tillfish General blinked with concern. You don't remember? The human carried you into an access hatch and checked that it was clear. He put you down, told me to patch you up, but I don't have anything for first aid. Okay, where is he now? Said something about hearing Arxor in the tunnels. Took that feral quadruped. Dino, Mama! Vin cheered. Dino the dog! Yes, that thing. Anyways, Marcel went looking for enemies. Mentioned clearing the tunnels and keeping us safe. And you let him go alone? The human said to stay with you. He was blinking a lot. I'm not sure if your blood bothered him. It would never. Mark was upset that I'm hurt, if anything. Are you sure, Slanek? Of course I'm sure. He was fine around a gorgeous stampede. The humans all were. He saved a trampled child. There was a long pause, as skepticism swam in the Tillfish General's eyes. I knew the insectoid wouldn't ditch Marcel when the primate was our best asset against the Arxor, but I suppose few individuals beside myself would tempt a predator's bloodlust. It took personal exposure to humanity's nurturing side to accept that their empathy dominated. Marcel said himself that he doesn't like killing. Humans can balance empathy and violence, is what I told him at the supply tent. A gunshot exchange sounded down the tunnel, and fear clenched at my heart. The adrenaline boosted me back to alertness, but I couldn't stand up. Bootsteps smacked the floor, alongside the sound of munitions chipping bricks. A human yowl reverberated through the structure, followed by Dino's throaty barks. Tears swelled in my eyes, realizing Marcel would die alone. I reached out to Birla and pulled myself up with the last of my strength. Hunched over at the waist, I staggered in the direction of my friend's cry. The Tillfish General tried to grab my shoulder, flinching away as blood coated her leg. With a frustrated grunt, I hobbled down the tunnel. It wasn't long before I was leaning against the wall for support. Fuck off! That was Marcel's thunderous voice. It was possible to discern the words in this roar, which was more formidable than any I'd heard before. This is my turf! You're not coming in here, arseholes! My legs buckled and I crumpled back onto the floor. Why hadn't I reclaimed my firearm? The coldness was becoming palpable, making me wish for a human pelt to cocoon myself in. At least Marcel was still fighting, but I was in no state to rescue him. My pupils fluttered in his direction as I sucked in some wheezing breaths. The human was hugging a wall corner, and I could see his teeth flash from here. His hands popped off a few shots, while enemy rounds buffeted his refuge. Brick debris sprinkled overhead, as Marcel clutched his gun tighter. Dino was growling at his side, though the mutt appeared to be waiting for something. Surrender yourself, human! We have room for an honourable prisoner! A bone-chilling voice called out. A maniacal laugh emanated from Marcel. What is it with aliens? Drawing my name in the kidnapping and torture lottery. I'll pass. I crawled along the floor, moving a few inches at a time. Since I was wounded anyways, my best usage was to serve as a distraction. The Arxor might wish to collect me as cattle, and that could give Marcel the clear shot he needed. The chances of a surviving Silas were slim overall, but the Terran would fare better without my dead weight. Scuttling noises echoed behind me, and Birla came racing down the hallway. The Tillfish General righted my seized firearm, angling it toward the Arxor. Despite her distrust, she was willing to come to the human's aid. In my opinion, she should have gone with him to begin with. Better late than never, I suppose. 3 Arxor ducked around the corner, just as Birla half the distance. The insectoid had a trusty shot, clocking 1 grey in the brain. Marcel released Dino upon the hostiles and depressed the trigger. Enemy bullets answered, taking out a brick right above his head. I could feel his adrenaline vicariously. His binocular eyes were crazed. I have to help somehow. The neck-hatting weak distraction seemed to work the last time. Should I try again? Yummy Venlil! Over here! I cried out, with a faltering voice. The Arxor had already scented my blood, I assumed. The trail must have drawn them down here, unless they followed us from the surface. It was possible they waited for us to lower our guard. While I'd technically been conscious in our travels, it was tough to retrieve the memories. There was a chance I wouldn't remember any of this now. The two surviving Greys weren't as distracted as the Egg Raiders had been, but I saw their pupils twitch. The lack of impulse control was in stark contrast to humans. I suppose I was lucky that Isif and his bunch didn't wolf me down in New York. A little blood or a wounded animal's cry worked their kind into a frenzy, even amidst combat. Marcel cursed, realizing I'd abandoned my refuge. The human popped up from his crouch, and the Greys rushed to shoot him. One bullet whizzed dangerously close to his earlobe, while additional shots lurked in the chamber. The lead Arxor's sights aligned with his temples. I felt my blood pressure plummet. Was that for my wounds, or just grief? No! I screamed. There was nothing I could do to stop the bullet from piercing his brain. The Terran had become reckless out of concern for me, and he was paying the ultimate price. Marcel managed to take down one Grey in a final act of defiance. The next thing I heard was a deafening boom, as the monster shot my best friend. The Predator's head snapped back with unnatural speed, and he crashed onto his back. I screamed as the human lay splayed out on the floor. Dragging myself on all fours, my toes bled from the frantic pace. My frayed vocal cords screeched his name, while warm tears ran down my face. The grief I felt was a chasm in my chest, an all-consuming sadness. Birla dispatched the final Arxor and scuttled over to Marcel's side. I managed to reach the Predator's body, which was still warm to my touch. It was tough to see through blurry vision, but his hair didn't look like a deeper red than usual. The blood was imperceptible to my eyes. Perhaps I didn't want to see it. My brain must be imagining the rise and fall of his chest. That, or he was slipping away right now. I'm sorry, I whispered. You were the best friend I ever had. I failed you. I always failed you. And I... Marcel! Don't leave me! Why did my human have to die? Why? My emotions devolved into an incoherent whirlwind, and I released a visceral wail. I slammed my good arm into his gut, furious at the universe. A high-pitched yelp came from beneath me, and Marcel's corpse shifted. My vision refocused on him, watching as he moved an arm to his head. The human's eyelids fluttered, and a grimace crossed his face. My best friend pinched his nose. Oh, God. That rung my bell. The grief that was fueling me dissipated. I clung to his warm chest with sobs of relief, and Dino came over to lick his face. Marcel pushed the dog away, an instinctive snarl on his lips. He unclipped his helmet, inspecting it with amazement. I gasped at the nick in the cloth lining. The bullet had grazed my human on the dome. The red-haired soldier hoisted himself up, clutching me to his chest. I felt his wonderful fingers fiddling with my ears, and mewed my adoration. Alarm coursed through my veins as Marcel stumbled. His skull absorbed much of the impact. The Terran might well be concussed. But he was blissfully alive, and that was music to my ears. I love you, Mark, the same as I did my flesh and blood brother. I care about you so much, I whispered in a faint voice. I know I disappointed you, but you never disappointed me. His hazel eyes moistened. What did I tell you? I got the best, Venlil. I'm only disappointed in how you view the world. It took Marcel an agonizing minute to retrace his steps and arrive at our impromptu base. The Predator sank against a wall and leaned his head back. He allowed me to burrow into his stomach, snarling for his exhaustion. Vint was giddy at the Hoomer's return, though his mother kept him at a distance. Marcel peeked at my arm, and his mental fog vanished. He snapped at Birla, livid that she hadn't tended to my wounds. The Tillfish general cowered at his ferocity, but I could tell he was just rattled. My human knew how close he came to dying. It didn't help his mindset to reckon with my critical condition. The human cleared his throat. This might hurt, okay? Everything is going to be alright, Slanek. I'm not going anywhere.
Please forgive me. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you.
I wrapped my tail around Marcel's wrist and tensed up as he stitched my wound.
I don't want to leave any bad blood between us.
You hurt my feelings, that's all. Vint should be institutionalized for liking me? I'm that terrible to my best friend?
It's not like, ow! I like you, but things about you should trigger fear at first.
Why? You know the Federation lied to you. They lied about us, omnivores like the Tillfish, and basic biology. I'm telling you, it was all lies. Predator disease and feral predators are their ideas too. Stop regurgitating them.
There are people with predator disease. They hurt people.
But predator disease isn't just assigned to violent sociopaths. It's used on anyone who's wired differently. Do you realize by the Federation's definition, you have predator disease?
No, that's crazy, Mark.
I know. I fucking know. Mental health is a complicated thing, with thousands of conditions with unique attributes. Not all of them are violent. Not all of them need to be erased. Marcel finished patching me up and retrieved a radio from his supplies. I mulled over his words, though my brainpower was running on empty. If predator disease was another vessel for Federation lies, that meant we were locking away harmless people. No wonder my human was upset with my suggestion for Vint. It was the same as how Dr. Zahn wanted to treat me for defending Marcel.
So there are different types of predator disease, with different causes and manifestations. And we use fear to ostracize every patient. I'm sorry, I croaked.
Marcel squeezed my paw. I'm sorry too. I should have taught you about these things sooner. It's my responsibility to educate you, but I've just tried to shield you.
I know I'm not easy to talk to. I know it hurts you when I freak out, or misinterpret you. You know, I wanted to kill Dino earlier, and I almost did.
None of that matters now. You've been my rock, Slanek. You brought me back from the edge, and you made me believe that there was good in the galaxy.
That's all I could ever want. Hey, if anything happens to me, tell my parents what...
Tell them yourself. We're getting out of here. I'm going to call for help and try to make contact with the UN. Sounds good, huh? I didn't have the heart to tell them the United Nations were long gone. Just as they hadn't come back for the soldiers on the cradle, nobody was swooping down to the sewers to rescue us. General Birla seemed unconvinced as well. The evacuation announcement stated the deadline in no uncertain terms. At least I could share my last hours with Marcel, rather than dying alone. My human switched on his radio. UN Fleet, do you copy? This is Captain Marcel Fraser. We have a Venlo VIP in need of medevac. Transmitting our coordinates. Over. There was no response once Marcel finished his message. The static didn't seem to deter his efforts, since he repeated his transmission several times. I nuzzled against his wrist, and felt my eyelids becoming heavy. The Predator's warmth helped with my dropping temperature. Don't worry, I'll keep calling them, Marcel growled. When they beat back the Arxor, they'll come. I closed my eyes.
Yeah, humans will win.
We sure will. Sleep well, Slanek.
Dino sidled up to me as I dozed off, and my instincts rekindled.
He placed his coarse snout on my leg, and my mind circled back to Federation lies. The dog hadn't shown any signs of being evil. He seemed loyal to the humans through thick and thin. Maybe Marcel was right about giving him a chance too. Predators couldn't be inherently monstrous when the Terrans existed. This was a simple choice about whether the Federation defined the Venlil. I pressed one paw atop the dog's back, trusting my human to protect me. Marcel wouldn't put me in danger, and he said Dina was a friend. The safest place in this Arxel raid was sandwiched between two watchful predators. Knowing this slumber might be my last, I drifted off at peace with my fate.